Welcome aboard, shipmates. This is Real Sailors, Real Sea Stories, a training program created for the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps by our friends and supporters at the Navy Talent Acquisition Group in Philadelphia. I'm your host, Warrant Officer David Sheets, and I am joined by our Navy crew of MC-1 Quinlan, who's our PAO, and STG-1 Lewison, who's our Technical Support Director. I also want to shout out to Ensign DePipio of the Naval Sea Cadet Corps for helping bring some great speakers, of which you're about to meet one. So what is our topic today? It's all about the most historic and, I think, interesting raid in the Navy, about being a boatswain's mate. So we're going to learn a whole bunch about this, cadets. So I'm really looking forward to it. Our speaker today is Petty Officer Second Class Elias Dalton of the Naval Recruiting District in New England. So, cadets, as you know, this is an interactive presentation, or the best we can do. So as this presentation goes along, put your questions in the comments section, just like you normally do, and I'll get them filtered out to our speaker, and we'll get your answers right away. Also, remember, there is that online quiz. We'll post that after the presentation. Take the online quiz, reinforce what you heard today, and get 2 hours of virtual drill credit. So cadets, again, make sure when you're filling this out, you're using your proper email address and your CO's proper email address, so everybody gets notified of the great work that you just did. So, without any further delay, Petty Officer Dalton, this ship is all yours.
Good afternoon, good evening, cadets. Thank you for having me today. So, my name is Petty Officer Dalton. I've been in the Navy for about 10 years at this point, and I am a boatswain mate, second class petty officer. Next slide, please. So I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and I joined the Navy when I was 19 years old after doing about a year and a half in college, and I was studying criminal justice at the time. I just kind of felt like I was in a rut, not really, gaining any experience or learning what I thought I was going to be doing at college. So I joined the Navy, like I said, about 6 years ago now. It's 6 years and 2 months now. I joined to gain experience, travel the world, and serve my country.
Mr. Dalton, from Denver, Colorado, okay, so you're in the Navy, not a big Navy town.
No, not at all.
What made you think about joining the Navy? Why was that an interest to you?
Well, I have an uncle that he went to the Naval Academy.
Right.
And he ended up retiring as an 06. And so he's actually doing some top secret stuff. I don't really know a whole lot about his career, but
okay.
I think that was what was enticing to me, is what he was able to do.
Okay. So where were you going to school in Colorado?
I was going to Red Rocks Community College.
Very nice.
I was playing baseball for an adult league as well. So my time was pretty wrapped up, actually, right after high school.
Okay. So then off to the Navy for an adventure and something completely different to benefit. So looking forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I joined the Navy as an undesignated seaman. Today it's called the Fireman PAC program. And I just had no idea what I wanted to do. So as it was explained to me, the undesignated program was an opportunity for you to be in the Navy and learn different jobs as you're in. And so I went to Basic Engineering Common Core, and I've kind of had some trouble adapting in my life. And so through Basic Engineering Common Core, I was actually processed out of that school the day before graduation.
I'm sure there's a crazy story there, but do we want to pass that one over?
It was a misunderstanding, sir, I'll say.
Okay.
My instructor and I just had miscommunication. And so
fair enough.
It led to an academic review board, and they decided that I was better suited somewhere else. And I'm glad that had happened. I'm not really a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, but I think some things do. And so I wasn't going to be stuck in the engineering plant anymore. Doing that kind of stuff, I was going to be topside, and I was going to work in the sun and hard labor type stuff. So as I was reclassified, I got orders to the USS Pinckney, which is a destroyer. And the capabilities of that ship are are pretty unmatched. They're known as the Greyhounds or tin cans in the Navy, small boys. And so we have capabilities as far as flight operations. We have the 5-inch weapon system on the front. There's a lot of different things that we can do with that. So a part of my job is driving small boats, landing and launching the helicopters that are on the flight deck. One of my last qualifications actually was flight deck officer for my ship. And so as that, I'm responsible overall for all safety as far as the enlisted side goes. So usually, I'll have obviously somebody above me, which would be the HCO, but if I didn't give it the thumbs up, it didn't happen. And I like that aspect. I like holding responsibility, and being a bosun mate, you learn that very quickly. It's something we kind of call it being thrown to the wolves or thrown in the fire, but I think that's where you learn. That's how you develop and how you grow when you're in an uncomfortable environment. You're just thrown in there, and it allows you to grow and lead. As soon as you learn to follow the footsteps and the right way to do things, you're on track to now lead and be a mentor to the junior sailors that are under you at that point.
So I have a question for you in regards to ratings. So as the picture shows and what you just said about flight deck operations and stuff, we've had aviation boatswain's mates on the presentation before. So I'm very interested, do they have aviation boatswain's mates on these destroyers, or how does that work? Or is it, is it not specialized because there's not enough people? Give me insight to that.
Yeah. Okay. So on a destroyer or a cruiser, both, or even a frigate back in the day, or an LCS now, all of them are small deck ships. So aviation bosun mates, which are ABE, ABF, or ABH, those individuals are more or less going to be tied to the LHAs, LHDs, or aircraft carriers. They specialize in moving the equipment, fueling the birds, and also landing and launching them. For us, because we're loaded out at a max capacity of about 275 sailors, we have to be able to adapt and be versatile. So that's a part of the reason that we run the flight deck on the destroyers, cruisers, and LCSs. So no, we do not have aviation bosun mates. And actually, sir, fun fact, they're now real bosun mates for all my AVHs that are out there. Hope you guys are listening. Ferry bosun mates is what we call them, sir.
Oh, okay. I get that. There's nothing wrong with a good ribbing between rates. It's no problem there. Okay. So I did notice in your intro that you do have, surface warfare and air warfare designators. So yes, I guess that means you do have to cover every single thing that the ship does.
We do. If there's an operation that's happening, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a bosun mate attached to the team. Whether it's going to be the damage control efforts, or obviously we do a lot of vertical replenishment, at sea replenishment. We drive the ship, we drive the small boats. So anything that you can think of that needs to happen on that ship, we take a part in. Yes, sir.
Okay, very nice. Thank you.
Of course. And then just the top Navy memory, I'll touch on that. So vertical replenishment is pretty similar to the picture that you're looking at here, with the exception of most of those individuals are going to be back inside the hangar bays, and you'll have a pallet full of supplies. We can take on ammunition, food, water, whatever it's going to be, and it'll be in the middle of that flight deck there. As the helicopter hovers over the top of that cargo, we are actually below it. And I have a video on my Instagram. I should have put it in here, but we are standing underneath there with a pennant trying to hook it up to the bottom of the bird. And so as we hook it up, the helicopter is obviously moving up and down as the ship is moving up and down as well, and side to side. So being under there for the first time, pretty nerve-wracking. But that's why I kind of put it as my number one memory. It's a pretty good representation in my mind as to the overall Navy. You're going to have somebody who has your life in their hands, whether it's a junior officer or a seasoned pilot that's in that bird. You have to have veteran people that are down on the flight deck as well with you. and you have to be able to trust that the other person is doing the right thing at all times. And so I think that that's why it's one of my favorite memories.
So, I mean, how do you start that? Because, I mean, that's pretty intense, right? You have a hovering helicopter over top of you, right? You're on a pitching deck. It's moving back and forth, right? There has to be, a lot of training that goes into that. I'm sure they just don't say, hey, hey, Dalton, go out there and just hook this to the bottom of the helicopter. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of practice going into, or do they?
No, we're not just going to throw you out there, but things do move fast. I mean, there is a learning curve for us. You have to be able to adapt and overcome any situation that you're presented with, and you have to be able to learn quickly and be willing to contribute to the team. So, everybody that you see in that picture there, we all go to Aviation Shipboard Firefighting School, which is in San Diego, California, prior to us being certified to be able to work on the flight deck. So as a team, we will go to the schoolhouse where they have a simulated flight deck and a helicopter crash on the flight pad. Now, our job on a destroyer is we'll have 3 different teams. One team that is designated for cooling ordnance that's going to be attached to the bird, whether it's the Hellfire missiles or it'll be the 240 or the 50 cal, just to make sure that those rounds or that missile doesn't cook off. So that's one team that's strictly designated to that. On the port and starboard side as well, you'll have 2 teams or 1 team on each side. And those teams, they have different things that they're doing simultaneously. So obviously we're going to be back a little bit trying to push up into the fire. Once we get to a safe spot, what you can't see in this picture is there's, we call them hot suit men, and they're wearing proximity suits. Those individuals that are wearing proximity suits are going to walk into the fire as we're covering them with a wide V from the nozzle. And then they will open the doors to the bird and drag the aircrew out. Mm-hmm. So that's one certification that we're going to have to do prior to even doing flight operations. So, there's one step, and then you're going to have to go out there and get a full PQS signed off on the crash and salvage team, the chalk and chain team. And then at that point, once I feel comfortable as the flight deck officer, I will go out there with you and do your first vert rep with you.
Okay. So definitely it's not like, here, just go do this. There is significant training and checks for safety.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Perfect. Next slide, please. Okay. I spoke on this a little bit earlier, but our role within the team. So bosun mates are on multiple, we're very versatile. Like discussed before, we are the oldest rate in the Navy. So we are literally everywhere. We can be attached to naval special warfare. I've had some friends that were helping with the basic underwater demolition SEAL team training as safety boats. We can be on coastal river-on groups or attached to aircraft carriers. We're really not limited by anything that we do. So our role within the team, it requires you to be a leader from pretty much day one. When you show up, you're not going to necessarily know what's going on the ship, but you are expected to learn and learn it quickly because typically, and just speaking from destroyer lifestyle, we're not always manned properly where we need to be. So if we're undermanned, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take all of us to get the mission done, whether it's busting down the bulkhead and getting it primed and painted, or whether it's to be able to conduct flight quarter operations as well as small boat operations and driving the ship at the same time to conduct a visible board search and seizure. So, we're very versatile and we have to be everywhere at all times.
So, obviously it's pretty physically demanding, right? Okay.
Yes, sir. It can be.
Do you have to set aside time for PT, or is that just part of the job? So, you're always in good shape, because just like you were talking about with supporting flight operations, everything's training, right?
Yes, sir.
So you can't really have an easy day. You can't let yourself, slide. What do you do to maintain that state of personal readiness?
Well, for my last ship, it's a little bit different out here in recruiting, but my last ship, we were PT Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays starting at 05:30. So we would be out there as a command doing our PT. As far as individuals go within deck division, just to speak on this, you did say, you have to be in shape and physically fit. Usually, and this is just from my experience, when a young woman hears that, they're kind of deterred from doing a BM job or taking that billet. But if you look at this picture specifically, the young woman that I'm pinning here, she was an undesignated seaman. And then the one in the back with the polo on, she was also in deck division. So it's not an impossible job to do for a woman. And actually some of the best leaders that I've had in deck division were women. So just to speak on that real quick. And then as far as the PT, you have to hold yourself accountable. We're not always going to have the time to go and do PT as a division. You have to find the time for yourself. So typically for me, I would be up, if it wasn't a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, at 4:30 and at the gym by 05, that's on base, and then able to muster at 6:45. You have to do what you have to do. So,
Right. A lot of personal motivation, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And then let's see. I think that's good for this. We'll touch on everything else on the next slide, please, Mr. Jabon. Okay, so this is a short video of what it's like to be a boatswain.
So we may not have any sound with this,
Okay.
because cadets, this is how we roll from time to time. So feel free to narrate if anything points out to you.
Yeah, of course, sir. Okay. So here we're driving. It looks like a destroyer. That's an aircraft carrier. Let's see. We're doing some line handling here. This is a replenishment at sea, taking over cargo. I think I saw ordnance in there. Small boat operations. Stand and watch here. Have a look out. Paint the ship. Yep. Small boats again. Let's see what else we got going on here. That's probably one of our biggest, my favorite part of being on the ship is the search and rescue, like you're seeing here. It's a very important job. Obviously, you have to find people that have maybe fallen over the side or distress calls and be able to save somebody's life. This is one of the biggest traditions right there that you saw with them moving their hands like that. It's called piping. That's how we communicate with the entire ship. Let's see, tattoos are a part of the heritage.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, big team effort. That video makes me happy. I think, a lot of people ask me, so BM is not a very sought after position. And a lot of people, classify boatswains as, kind of the grunts of the Navy and people that may not have done well on their ASVAB and whatever stereotype you can throw at it. But I think for me, being in deck division, because I came to the USS Pinckney at that point as an undesignated seaman. Being a part of deck division it's been the funnest part of my life, and it's not what everybody thinks it's going to be. Of course, it's hard work. I don't think any job in the Navy is easy. We have a very close, tight-knit team, because as you're going through issues, and if you're from back home, you have your sailors that are there you can rely on. And if you're pulling long days like we typically do, and you see the rest of the ship leaving as you're still painting the starboard side, because Chief's out there telling you that it needs to be done before the sun goes down, that's what we do. And I think a part of that hard work, togetherness, is part of the reason that I stayed. I love being a boatswain. I love the people of deck division.
I had the opportunity to be on board a ship that was doing underway replenishment, and just the orchestration and teamwork and focus on safety and just getting those two ships, steaming in parallel and all that. It is, there was a small piece of it here in this video, but just seeing it live is just incredible how everybody has a part. And you're right, it is all about teamwork. One person's not doing that, and it's definitely something to be proud of.
Right, and to touch on that, sir, so it's not just in deck division. Just looking at an underway replenishment, we're looking at an entire ship that's working towards one mission. So if, just to put it into perspective for you, if you go a couple decks below, you're looking at the engineering plant being able to take on as much fuel as we possibly can without overfilling the tanks and spilling into the ocean. Being able to gauge all of that going on down there, as well as matching the speed that is coming down from the bridge that we're trying to match with the ship that we're going alongside with, which would be the guide ship, which could be a carrier or a tanker. And then you go up to the bridge, you're going to have the commanding officer, the executive officer, the officer of the deck, and the junior officers that are switching in and out of the con, which is what the individual that gives us our orders. So whether it's going to be a right 5-degree rudder, that's the individual that's telling us coming from the officer of the deck. So we have that going on, and then they're talking to the master helmsman, who is standing at the helm, which is this last picture here. That's a specific qualification in and of itself, and it's extremely time-consuming. It's very in-depth. You have to be able to turn the ship to a certain decimal, and you cannot deviate from it. So, you have the engineering plant, you have the bridge, going back probably aft where we're taking on fuel and stores. You have two different sets of teams that are bringing over supplies and bringing over fuel. And even simultaneously as we're doing that, we can be doing a vertical replenishment. So we can be doing all three things simultaneously while the rest of the ship is helping us heave around on that supplies as it all comes over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, you're right. It is all about that teamwork. It's all about that coordination. And if you're not doing it safe and you're not doing it right, the potential of disasters is gigantic.
Absolutely. I've seen, so a sea story real quick. My first replenishment at sea, where we're taking over fuel, we're taking over JP5 from the Ronald Reagan, which is an aircraft carrier. Mm-hmm. We were just out of the yards, they were just out of the yards, and so their equipment had got tied up, but we didn't realize that at the time. So we had many people, many sailors on the aft missile deck, heaving around, trying to bring over the probe, which then seats, and then that's how we start pumping out fuel. So as we're heaving around, the span wire, which is a 3/4 inch wire rope, is attached to our ship and attached to a pelican hook, which is secured. So it's not supposed to go anywhere, which it didn't. But because the equipment was tied up over there, there was too much tension on that, and so it snapped, making that line that's in all the sailors' hands start running. As soon as that line starts running, you either need to drop it or you're not going to have a good day. You're going to be, dragged across the ship, across the non-skid, and get pretty tore up. So that was my first encounter with a replenishment at sea, and I think that was the day when I decided that I wanted to be a boatswain. I wanted to make sure that we're doing it right at all times.
That safety lecture was real.
Yes. Yeah. It's always in depth. We're always going to do a brief prior to any evolution. It just has to happen. I need you to understand what your expectations are from me. Typically, I'm going to be a safety officer, or I'm going to be your petty officer in charge of that evolution. So I will always give you a brief prior to the evolution, and then post-evolution, we always debrief. I need you to understand what went well, what didn't go that good. That way, we can be better every single time. And we're never going to be perfect, but briefing and communication is key for us. It has to happen.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next slide, please. Okay, what do I do as a BM? So the landing and recovery of amphibious assault vehicles. So we have ships that are designed to sink in the aft portion, and that is what we call a well deck. So we can take on LCACs, which are landing craft air cushion. We can take on LCUs and LCMs and AAVs from the Marine Corps. Now, those vehicles are going to be loaded up into the ship either prior deployment or underway, or, with the LCACs, they can come from the beach and hover over the water into the well deck. So this is actually how we stormed Omaha Beach. And so since then, we've developed different ways that we can actually stab a beach and be able to get as many personnel and as much equipment as possible onto that beach as soon as we're going to take it over. So part of the job that we have with the well deck, we can either pilot the LCACs, which pretty much any other rate can as well. But we are the ones that are always going to be in charge of what's happening on that well deck. So we're making sure that it's safely coming in, safely being recovered, and it can launch properly. That's actually a portion of my job that I have yet to see. So on a destroyer, like I said, we have many capabilities, but unfortunately for me, the launch and recovery of amphibious assault vehicles is not one of them. So I'm looking to go to Japan on an LSD after I get out of here so I can make sure that I get my qualifications for the well deck.
Oh, very nice. Very cool. Yeah, I've seen that. It's incredibly loud.
Oh yeah. I've seen some videos of it. A lot of my friends transferred from the destroyer over to amphibious assault ships, and I was pretty jealous watching those videos that they were sending me.
Okay, well, you'll be there soon.
Hopefully, yes, yeah. Flight quarter operations. So we do a lot of different things, and what you're looking at in that picture in the background is an MH-60 Romeo, and so that the primary mission capabilities of that aircraft is submarine hunting. And so we are, like I said, the destroyer is a Greyhound. We're kind of, a jack of all trades. So we'll take on 2 MH-60 Romeos as we deploy, and going through the South China Sea specifically is where we do a lot of training for our anti-submarine warfare. And so that bird actually is designed to be able to find submarines and relay the information back to the ship. And so that's one capability that we have there. The other ones is going to be a helicopter in flight refueling, which is the picture that was a few slides ago. And so we will, the bird doesn't have to land in order to refuel, which is pretty amazing for us to be able to get that hose, get that fuel out there, in case of an emergency. And typically that's what it's going to be used for. When there's like a tire or some reason that the bird will be prevented from landing, that's typically when we're going to do a helicopter in-flight refueling. That way we can get us enough fuel to fly to the closest base on land. And then, vertical replenishment, I think we touched on that. And one of the coolest things that I've seen us do with a helicopter is visible search and seizure. That one is going to be where that aircraft is going to launch. And as soon as we see our target, they'll hover over the top of it, spraying it down with water, just from the rotors kicking up all the water. And then the aircrew is going to cover us with a 50 cal or a 240 Delta from the cabin as we approach on the port or starboard side of that bird or of that ship and climb up and take over the ship. So big picture stuff with the flight quarter operations.
Have you had to do that yourself?
Yeah, we did some in the Middle East, the visible search and seizures.
Okay.
It was pretty cool stuff, pretty intense.
Yeah, I would think that heart rate is through the roof, and you're steaming towards it. You have that air cover. You don't know what you're going to expect, right?
No, you have no idea. And every single one's going to be different. I'm really proud of my people that are actually on deployment right now. So my ship that I just left, they're on deployment, and I believe it was $28 million worth of cocaine that they seized off of a submarine that was, I think it's the largest bust in naval history. So, and then actually earlier this week or late last week, they just had another bust of $4.5 million, working with the Coast Guard out there off the coast of South America. So they're doing a lot of big things out there as far as counter-narcotic operations go. So very proud of them.
So, cadets, a lot of you always are thinking, special warfare, SEALs, all that type of stuff, right? But they're not the only ones that get involved with this high adrenaline type of activity. So,
right.
Keep your options open, keep your eyes open. There's if that's what you're into, there's plenty of ways to achieve that.
Absolutely. And just to, a little further more into that, with me, as far as anti-terrorism force protection goes, I'd let it be known right away that it was something that I was interested in. So I actually got the opportunity to go through a pilot program that was designed by NCIS, which is a real organization. It's really not what you see on TV, however, but they took me to one of their pilot programs. It was me and 24 other individuals, and we went through their active shooter course, where we went through abandoned buildings, and the NCIS officers were actually hiding out within that building in numerous different spots, or there was just one. It was training on how to maneuver through a building as a team or by yourself, and be able to eliminate targets, and have the training in mind that there will be situations where you have to pass over casualties and render medical attention after you eliminate the target. Because if you start on it right away, you're probably going to get more casualties without taking away the issue. So if federal law enforcement or if special warfare is kind of like an end goal for you, absolutely, you're going to find that in the fleet, in the Navy, regardless of what your rate is.
Yeah, that doesn't exactly sound like your historical boatswain's mate activities, does it?
No, I've had a couple of different experiences than what you're going to find in the history books. So.
Okay, very nice.
Let's see. So moving to the search and rescue. Search and rescue is one of our biggest jobs that we have, and it's every single time we would pull out of the harbor, I felt like we would have a search and rescue drill, where there's a couple different ways that we can recover an individual if they fell over the side, or if we have a distress call. But one of the ways is that we're gonna recover from the ship, and that's gonna be when we're in rough seas and we can't launch the boat and we can't launch the bird. So that's one way where we're gonna throw over life rings, and we have what's called a J-bar davit, so that we can recover you and bring you into the ship a little closer, put you in what's called a rescue strop, and heave around on you from the decks of the ship, which is probably the most difficult way to do it. Utilizing manpower to, 200 pounds might not seem like a lot with 8 individuals, but bringing it up to an entire ship, that's a lot. Mm-hmm. Especially soaking wet, and sometimes it'll be 2 individuals coming up on that rescue strop. So it's a lot of work. And then the other way would be through our small boats. So on the ship, on a destroyer specifically, we had 2 7-meter ribs, which are 23 feet 9 inches, with 1 outboard diesel prop. And so that rib is going to be lifted on a miniature crane from the main deck, from the number 1 topside deck, over the side, and then brought to where it's equal to the deck, brought into the ship, and then the crew will step on board to it. And then we'll tie off, and they'll drop us down into the water, and we'll take off. So we're on that team because we are the coxswains. Coxswains are the ones that drive the ship, we drive the small boats, whether it's going to be 11-meter ribs or 7-meter ribs. That's really what we specify in. And then we're always going to have the search and rescue swimmer that's attached to that team as well. And as we deploy them, they're going to deploy off the starboard side, and we'll recover on the port side with that survivor, hopefully being able to render aid and get back to the ship quickly before hypothermia or another injury will take that individual's life.
Gotcha.
And then the third way is going to be with the helicopter, and they will actually be our primary if they're already on deck spinning and able to launch. If they're not, it's going to take way too much time to pull that bird out, unfold, and get it started up in order to launch. But if they are on deck spinning, then we'll launch them to recover with the rescue swimmer, which kind of ties into the small boat operations. That's one capability that we have. The other one is going to be with patch transfer, personnel transfer, supply transfer, or the visible search and seizure. So being a coxswain really has its benefits. There would be times where we'd be out to sea for a couple of days, too long, and we were the only ones that were able to pull into the harbor, maybe drop some people off, pick some people up, or supplies, or whatever it's going to be. and we'll take our time on the pier as we get ready to transit back. Obviously, we're not going to miss the deadline and keep the ship holding up too much due to operational security, but yeah, we're going to get our time back up there.
But it happens, and sometimes things take longer than you thought.
Right? Yeah, that call with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Yeah, maybe give it a couple extra minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Love it.
And then the customs and courtesies. This goes back to our heritage, and like I pointed out with the video that we had when the boatswain was piping. So where that individual was piping out was the bridge, and that's where everything happens. That's where all the decisions are made as far as navigation, and even some with the plant, the engineering plant. Up there is where we specifically communicate with the entire ship. So we'll have the boatswain make a call, and I wish I had my pipe on me. It's at the office, but otherwise I'd show you. So they'll make a certain call, and each call means something else. There will be a call for attention, make sure you're listening to what I'm saying, or there's a call for all hands where the commanding officer is going to come on the 1MC and pass over a message. There's chow, there's reveille, you name it, we got it, and I'm going to pipe as long as I possibly can when it's chow, because it has to be in accordance with instruction over a minute long. So you can bank that I'm going to go for a minute, 30 seconds just to try to ignore the majority.
Who says you can't have fun?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how we do it. At sea replenishment, I think we touched on that pretty good. We can move ordnance, we can move supplies, we can move shit like food and pretty much anything, fuel, JP5, whether it's going to be DFM for the ship, anything that you can think that needs to be moved from ship to ship and we can't pull in somewhere, it could be moved utilizing the at sea replenishment. Anchoring evolution is one of my favorite as well, and I think it's one of my favorite just because it's not unpredictable, but if everything doesn't align properly, or if someone missed a step or didn't do the step properly on their maintenance requirement card, things can go south pretty quick. And I think it was the USS Tarawa. That's a pretty famous video that they have of them losing the anchor chain. And that's a very dangerous situation to find yourself in. As we were, I think we were just off the coast of California, just doing some sort of operation. I can't remember what it was. It might have been an inspection. But our goal was to drop the anchor and anchor to the bottom of the seabed and just kind of stay there and show our inspectors that we were able to do it. As we did it, I was the POIC, and I gave the call to release the brake. As the brake released, the chain starts to run, and our goal was to catch it exactly where we want it to be, which would be probably the third or the fifth shot. And so where that ended up was the brake was unable to be set. And so myself and my safety ran over to the brake operator, and we were just pulling on this brake, hoping that we weren't going to lose it. We had 15 shots of chain on that center line anchor chain, and I think we got to the 8th one before we were finally able to make it stop. So it's fun. Those kind of moments is what we live for, though. Those high intensity where you don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to do your absolute best. That's kind of what we live for. That's what I love about Deck Division.
Oh, that's great.
Let's see. We also maintain the ship's material condition by specializing in preservation techniques, secondary responsibilities, damage control, medical training, and anti-terrorism force protection. Yeah, so I spiced up that first sentence a little bit. We also maintain the ship's material condition by specializing in preservation techniques. What I'm talking about there is taking a needle gun to a bulkhead and busting down that rust, sanding it down until you can see the metal, and then priming and painting it, and then that happens everywhere. Obviously, we're in the ocean, which is salt water, and we're on a ship that's steel. So, when that oxidizes, we're going to have to make sure that doesn't eat all the way through the metal that we have there. So our job is to make sure that ship, one, is fully functional as far as mission capabilities go and structural integrity, but secondary to also make it look good. That's true. That's every BMC's first thing. Whenever I'm walking up to another ship with my chief, every single one of them, it never failed. he would always point out, you see those streaks, or you see that rust that's over there on the aft port side. He would always have something to say about everybody else's ship. So it's a pride.
I could absolutely see that.
Yeah, it's a standard thing to say as a BMC.
And you know they're trying to do the same about yours.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
One of the questions that came in was about the anti-terrorism force protection. So can you dwell on that for a little bit? That sounds pretty intense.
Sure. So there's a lot that goes into it. Okay, but everybody's initial training when you get to a ship, unless you are going to be in the engineering plant, which even some of them will go through it. It's called Security Reaction Force Basic. And so that basic training is going to be taught by your command master at arms. For us, it was an MA1 at the time, master at arms, first class petty officer. That individual put us through a course as to how to properly stand a watch. And if the situation arises, what is going to be your next course of action. So we have the use of force continuum, which you're going to learn about verbal controls, soft controls, hard controls, intermediate weapons, and at the end of it, it'll be deadly force. So you'll learn all of that within probably your first 45 days on the ship. You're going to be required to go through that because everybody's got to stand watch and pull their weight.
Right.
And so that's going to be the first portion of it, getting that qualification. Along with that qualification comes getting OC sprayed. And if you've ever been OC sprayed, it's not a good time. You'll see the videos of boot camp where they go through the gas chamber and everybody's kind of nervous about that. That doesn't hold a candle to being OC sprayed. That'll last at least half a day for you. After you complete the Security Reaction Force Basic, you'll go through Security Reaction Force Alpha, and it's a more in-depth as to watch standing and actually how to utilize the weapons a little more effectively. You're going to learn more mock takedowns and just do more in-depth training. Obviously, it's a little bit longer, and it's taught by multiple individuals typically. So you won't get OC sprayed there. Again, it'll just be another qualification, making sure that you're adequately trained.
So did the incident with the USS Cole have any sort of driver in creating this curriculum, or this is just standard operation now due to the world that we live in?
I would say probably. Now the difference would be that the USS Cole was underway. And so for us, the Security Reaction Force Basic and Advanced, those are designed for in-port security measures. And so with the USS Cole, I'm sure it did have some sort of weight on that. But I think, we'll have incidences where somebody will try to drive up on the gate. And if you're stationed in Bahrain or if you're stationed somewhere overseas, while I was deployed, I was in Duqm, Oman, and there's high terrorist activity over there. And if you have a car that's driving up to you, you don't know who the individual is. So you're going to have to respond accordingly. And if you're not trained adequately in that, then, you can, if you pull the trigger and you were not supposed to, you can guarantee that you're going to pay the consequence for that. So they want to make sure that they take every measure that they possibly can to make sure that we're trained up enough to make a sound decision when it's time to make one.
Okay, I got that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The additional score would be visibility search and seizure after you go through Security Reaction Force. And back in the day, you had to get an outstanding or higher on your physical readiness test. Now, I don't think that it's required, but we did have a school in San Diego, California, and it was taught by a former Navy SEAL. You can actually find him on, I think it's World's Deadliest is this show. You can find him on YouTube, and he's a pretty intense guy, but the whole course is, it's made out of Connex boxes, and it's detached from the ship. So you are on temporary assigned duty for about a month, and you go over to this course, and it's a simulated ship with these Connex boxes. And this Navy SEAL and his team of actual soft community retirees, they're going to put you through the course on to properly take over a ship get into the engine compartments, get to the bridge, and be able to maneuver with a team through a ship and complete a mission. So it's pretty in-depth stuff. It's pretty fun, and definitely the Visible Board Search and Seizure program it's a volunteer program. Any sailor on the ship, whether you're a culinary specialist, you're a retail specialist, you're probably not going to get it if you're a nuclear engineer, just because you're pretty valuable to the Navy. They're going to spend a lot of money putting you through training, but pretty much anybody else, you're going to have the opportunity to be a part of that Visible Board Search and Seizure. And if you're looking for fun, different stuff, I would definitely check that out.
Very cool. Very cool.
Another part of my job, which I love, was the damage control, and it's really not a part of my job at all. But I think I found a passion for it while I was going through basic engineering Common Core. Damage control is the ability to put out fires and flooding casualties. So there's going to be 4 different classifications of fires that we're going to have on a ship, and you're going to have to know the different agents that you're going to have to utilize in order to put that out. So whether it's going to be the AFFF, which is aqueous film forming foam on the flight deck, or you're going to use halon in the main spaces for the engine rooms, you have to know what's on fire, how to put it out, and how much time you're going to have. So for instance, on the MH-60 Romeo, like I was discussing earlier with the Hellfire missiles, you can have a total of 8 of them, 4 on port, 4 on starboard. They have 31 seconds of a cook-off time on that flight deck. So if there's a fire that breaks out on that flight deck, you have roughly 25 seconds to get out there and start cooling that ordnance. Otherwise, you're going to have a really bad day. So, being able to have the knowledge behind you when it comes to damage control and firefighting efforts, probably one of my favorite parts of being a sailor. And before I left my ship, I was qualified as damage control training team, and I was overseeing the on-scene leader, which is the middleman between the CCS, which is the damage control central. So you'll have me and then the team down below fighting the fire in the main engine room. So it's a huge responsibility to have that on-scene leader, making sure that they can coordinate properly and manage that team without even being in the space, telling them what the trip hazards are, where the fire actually is, if it's in, frame 489, all the way aft on the port side. You have to know all that kind of stuff. So I think it was the challenge for me, learning all the different aspects of the ship and the ability that we have to put out these fires. That's probably what I liked most about the damage control training team.
Oh, very cool. So in the time that we have left, let's see some of your other adventures. So, I'm getting a good feel of the boatswain's mate rate. It's a lot more than what I thought, that's for sure, for those of us who are in the Navy. So I'm thoroughly impressed, but let's get some fun stuff out of the way.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I guess we'll start on the bottom right corner. The white on any evolution is going to represent the safety. So that in particular picture, I'm the flight deck officer there. I don't know what I was doing, probably just a photo shoot. We were probably just launching and having fun. So I think that was an MC, a mass communication specialist, that took that picture for me. The top right is actually down in Boston. And so right now I'm stationed in Massachusetts. I'm a recruiter for NRS Worcester. And so that's down in Boston. I was out here with one of my friends, and we were just kind of gallivanting through the city, sightseeing, and he took that picture of me there. The tattoos, we talked about that. It's a pretty big portion of being a boatswain. It's not a requirement by any means, but it's definitely a part of the culture. And one that I don't have yet would be the crossed anchors on the left or the right hand. I just don't know if I'm that committed yet to the life of the tattoos.
Okay. It looks like you're getting a pretty good set there. So, all right.
Yeah, and it's all the majority of it, with the exception of my chest. The arm is all nautical themed. So the gypsy head means something. On my inner forearm, you're going to have the anchor and the compass, the North Star. You can see on the top there that there's a swallow. There's a lot of different heritage that goes into the tattoos, and I love that. So of course I had to go with it.
All right.
Let's see, we'll move on up again. So that was actually one of the first individuals that I put in the Navy, and he was important to me because his mom had migrated here from Kenya, and so I think it's important to actually see what people go through before they get to America, and kind of what we take for granted. It's kind of a sad realization for me to come out recruiting and kind of see the lack of patriotism that we have in the country right now. But his mom was all about him joining the Navy, and so that was one of my prouder moments to be able to put him in the Navy.
Excellent. What rate did he end up being? Do you know?
He is in the aviation community, so he's a PAC airman right now. We're having some issues with citizenship stuff.
Okay.
He did really well on his ASVAB, so we're shooting for intelligence community for him.
Excellent.
Yes, sir. We're waiting on that waiver to come through any day now. To the left of that would be when we're in dry docks. So dry docks is I think that one was about 13 months for us. It's a pretty long period of time for a ship to be inoperable. And so we had a lot of work to do on the bottom of that. That is when we didn't actually do it, but the contractors that we hired to do it, they busted down everything that was on the keel, everything that was on the two props, shined them up and made them look good. And then I think about a month after this picture was taken, we're back out to sea doing sea trials, making sure that the ship was good to go. The far left is going to be me in Denver, Colorado, which is home for me. And then below that is going to be myself, Chief Khan, and another recruiter, IT1 Green, walking through the streets of Penn State. That was for one of the swarms that we did, and I was very grateful to be there. So I had to make sure to throw that in there.
Well, as a Penn State Nittany Lion, thank you for going there. Did you stop for ice cream?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was delicious. Yep.
That's one of our things. Okay, cool.
The Veterans Day picture is from 2019, obviously, and that was my first Veterans Day out here. So that's a couple of my team members. The guy standing by himself to my right, I guess that would be is NC1. He's my LPO, and then a brand new chief that had just made it, and then another fleet guy, an FCA1, and we all did a Veterans Day kind of volunteer program at a nursing home, and so that picture was taken there, and that was one of my times getting to know the individuals that are actually out here. So I like that one, and highlighting the people that I work with now. And then I like weapons, so that's me out here firing one of my AR-556 that I have. Just threw that in there for fun. Kind of
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, one of the things I enjoy doing.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right.
Great. So some of the questions that's coming from the cadets and everyone was, okay. Just say, for example, you weren't a boatswain's mate. What rate would you want to be?
In my honest opinion, I wouldn't pick another one. If I was absolutely forced to, I would probably select IS or CTT or CTR. And the reason for that is because, once again, they are extremely versatile for themselves. The crypto community that we have, you're obviously going to be getting a top secret clearance, which is extremely marketable. But you're going to be privy to information that's going on not only in your area of operation, but could be worldwide. And so, like I stated earlier in the presentation, I enjoy having responsibility, and I enjoy, being the go-to individual. So I think that those communities kind of have that, and they can be attached to anybody, whether it's going to be SEAL team platoons, SWIC boats, EOD, mobile units, or ships. They're pretty versatile. So probably something in the crypto community or intelligence.
Okay. And through the expanded knowledge I'm getting of the BM rate based upon this discussion, there seems to be just about everything you guys do. So it's kind of, it'd be almost limiting to do one single job somewhere else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And another question is, and this is true for, our cadets are in this stage in life where they're trying to determine what's next, right? And many of them are considering going into the Navy. So since you're in a position where you help future sailors pick out good careers and then start off at RTC Great Lakes, do you have any advice that you could give them in order to, what would you do to prepare yourself for going into recruit training?
So I would start studying your 11 general orders. I would look into the Sailor's Creed, and I would also learn rank and recognition. Those are going to be the things that set you apart from your competition or your peers once you're in there, because not a lot of people actually take advantage of the training that you're going to be getting through the delayed entry program or that you can do on your own. And so if you're able to learn those 3 different portions of just sailorization, you're going to have a pretty easy time going through boot camp. And we say that you have 2 different types of divisions. You have the strong ones, you have the smart ones. I would definitely recommend being part of the smart ones and taking all the information that you can from your recruiter, from anybody that has been in the Navy, or even any other cadets that are in leadership positions out here. Take everything that they have and soak it up like a sponge.
And I'm glad you brought up about the general orders and ranks and all that, because those are some of the fundamental things we teach in the Sea Cadet Corps. So cadets, you've heard this a couple times, and I hope that it's sticking, because what we're teaching you is not just memorization for the sake of memorization, but these are the types of things that if you decide you wish to pursue a career in this, or step in at least for some time, these are really going to benefit you, right? So take advantage of that. The training that you're getting here really helps out. So what I have heard from RDCs who I've worked with is that they do kind of search out the Sea Cadets, and a lot of Sea Cadets will kind of keep their mouths shut because they don't want to stick out when they go to RTC. But when it's found out, they're generally given the opportunity to be in leadership positions based upon their already having some knowledge. So you're not wasting your time with this program. You're getting a lot out of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, sir. The Sea Cadet program. I was just telling somebody in my office, if I could go back, I would try to force my parents to put me into a Sea Cadet program, because it's extremely beneficial. What you guys are doing is very important.
Well, thank you. So I will wrap up this discussion with you today with a question that our cadets always ask. All right. So I'm going to have to give you their favorite question of all time. All right. Okay. So you were not pre-briefed on this whatsoever. So cadets, you have my word. This was not discussed ahead of time. All right. So here's the question. So no, it's not. This isn't a crazy moment, but it makes you think. All right. So if you were to only use one word to describe the Navy, what word would that be, and why?
Powerhouse.
Powerhouse. Okay, no one's used that before. Okay, go ahead.
You're trying to be original, sir. I was trying to be original.
All right.
So, all right. Powerhouse, because what we're able to do. So if you just look at one ship specifically, we have multiple weapon systems that are able to take out any type of threat, whether it's going to be the closed-in weapon system that fires around 2,000 rounds per minute of 20-millimeter rounds, or you have the 5-inch round, which can shoot a penny from 13 nautical miles away, or if we're looking at Tomahawk missiles that range out to 1,000 miles, or torpedoes. The versatility and the superiority when it comes to weaponry that we have is unmatched. And so I guess if I could use one word, it would be powerhouse. Excellent.
I like that. No one has gone down that route before, and I'm glad that you took that. That's awesome.
Thanks,
Dempster Dalton, I really want to thank you for your time and giving insight to the boatswain's mate rate to us. I mean, again, I learned quite a lot from this discussion. It is much more versatile than I thought. It definitely opened my eyes up, and hopefully, cadets, it gave you some appreciation of how to turn some of the studying that you've done through the BMR and the Seaman course and all that type of stuff, and turn that into a reality of how they're actually applying that out in the fleet, which is really the big driver for part of this program, is for you to take the academic stuff, learn it from the experts, and then get a bigger picture of how it all goes together. And with that knowledge, I mean, it's very powerful for you, and you definitely can use it depending on what you want to do with your career. So absolutely take advantage of that. So again, Petty Officer Dalton, thank you very much. I'm also a big fan of Colorado. My son goes to CU Boulder, so big fan of that. So well done. Thank you for joining the Navy and sharing your experiences with us. Cadets, the quiz link will be posted in a few moments, so get on that quiz, get those 2 hours of virtual drill credit, and get that pride of knowing that you learned something today, and I know that you did. And again, take your time filling out the email addresses so you get your results. So on behalf of myself, on Petty Officer Quinlan, who's our PAO, SCG-1 Lewison, who was in the background running the slides, nice job, and Ensign Tapipio, who helped us from the Sea Cadet Corps arranging for our speaker today. I want to thank all of you for watching our broadcast, and we'll see you next time on Real Sailors, Real Sea Cadets. Have a great evening, everybody. Take care.